Toyota. There's been an interesting news story, and it really bugged me. And it bugged me because it does what... This is when news becomes disingenuous, where news is focused more on getting you to click on their story than actually keep you informed. Now, I am guilty of the same thing to a degree, but I'm self-aware. So I'm often like, I will tell you when I'm doing it. Like I will give the episode a salacious title, and then that story is the very last story. So in the hopes that you listen to the whole episode before, giving up and quitting. But then a lot of my titles just are nonsensical until you actually listen to the episode in the hopes that you get the joke after. The story here is Toyota pauses self-driving e-pallet service after one crash into an Olympic athlete. So in the Olympic Village, they're using these self-driving cars to get people around. And through the whole Olympics, there's been no problem at all. People get on, it takes them to a set destination. I don't know if it's always autonomous, but basically most of them are just driving on their own. They're following like a set path. Then the Paralympics start. A guy walks out in front of it and gets hit by one, and like, oh no, we have to shut down the whole service. But then you get to the immediate subtitle of the story and realize that this is the whole story you've been told is actually like the headline is false. Toyota pauses self-driving e-pallet service after one crashed into an Olympic athlete. The vehicle was reportedly under manual control at the time of incident. So from the title, you would assume that this story is about an autonomous car not following its programming properly and smashing into someone, giving us the impression that, oh, maybe the technology isn't there yet. Maybe this is a service that we can't trust. Self-driving cars are going to kill us all. Then you find out there was a person. So the self-driving e-pallet service is actually completely irrelevant to this story. And the only way it's newsworthy is if you stick that in the title. Because if you just write, man gently hits Olympic athlete or person, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, I just assume it was a man, that's not really much of a story. And the Olympic athlete, like, yes, he's hurt, he was hit by a car, but honestly, not very hard. These are not designed to go fast. They're not cars. They're more like big boxes on wheels. And again, they take you around the Olympic Village. They don't go on roads or highways and stuff. So you'd be expecting like a story about AI. You'd be expecting a story about like autonomous driving and the dangers that it will have for all of us in the future. So we won't be able to cross roads and stuff. But then the autonomous part was turned off. The driver hit a guy. Toyota paused the e-pallet service. Actually seems like an overreaction, but I'm betting that's partly because the driver was in an autonomous vehicle and he hit someone, and they want to make sure that the name of the e-pallet name doesn't get connected with accidents. But the fact that these were used autonomously for weeks in the Olympics without incident actually shows that you're probably safer using the autonomous vehicle over having some moron drive it. And so that was one of the news stories that popped up, and I read it and I was really, oh wow, what happened with the autonomous driving? Is this going to be a problem? Are we not? No, it was a dude, and the dude's he crashed into someone because he's not a good driver. I mean, I don't think there's much more to say than that, other than that's a bad driver. And the story has very little to do with the car. This should be all about this driver and how he hit someone, and he's a bad person and should feel guilt and sadness. Since we're talking about vehicles, I figure, there's segues. I'm gonna get my segues right. Segues are gonna go awesome. It's gonna be beautiful from now on. No, just this once. A woman was arrested for riding an electric scooter. Riding an electric scooter dangerously. Now, electric scooters have been a big news story in big cities in America, so I've read about them, but they don't have them here as a thing. So I think this might have been her own electric scooter that she was using. She went through a red light and hit a taxi, and the passenger in the taxi was injured. So they don't explain the injury. I at first have thought, like, how hard did this electric scooter hit this taxi that she actually injured the passenger? But then I realized, no, probably the taxi driver hit the brakes and the lady in the back or someone smacked her head against the seat in the front seat or something. That's more likely. But of course, my first image was she just like rams into the passenger door, goes right through it, and like lands her electric scooter on the passenger. So there was an injury, but it's like, I think they said 3 or 10 days to heal. They always do this interesting thing in Japanese news stories where they say how long it's going to take the injury to heal. And that's, again, it sort of falls into the severity of the punishment they're actually likely to face. Then I learned why she's being arrested, because it's not just for dangerous driving. Electric scooters aren't really a thing in Japan, as I said. That means their classification is always also a little bit up in the air. Electric scooters are classified as very small motorcycles with a displaced engine, which I found very interesting because, yeah, 2 wheels, engine is a motorcycle. What is a scooter but 2 wheels and an engine that you stand on? It's a very small motorcycle. So legally, I actually think this kind of makes sense, even though I think instinctually we know they're different. Probably because of speed and stuff. But a really small motorcycle like a scooter, they don't go very fast. So maybe if this was a really fast electric scooter, it would hit the same speed or level as a scooter. Electric scooter and scooter is actually now getting confusing, because electric scooters, I mean those things you stand on, but scooter, I mean those like Vespa tiny motorcycles. So under Japanese legal classification, an electric scooter is a small motorcycle with a displaced engine. Therefore, you need a license, insurance, a registration plate, and you probably should be wearing a helmet while riding it, which this lady who was driving dangerously didn't have any of that. She didn't have a driver's license. She didn't have insurance. She probably thought she didn't need it. This is just a scooter. It's basically an expensive kid's toy. Why would I need a helmet or any of this other stuff? Well, she's just found out your electric scooter riding privileges. I'm kind of losing my words. I should have thought about this one a little more before I went down this path. Your ability to ride an electric scooter, there's a legal issue because it's electric and has an engine. It's a vehicle. That's something you need to know if you're ever going to try to ride one in Japan. So be real careful with your electric scooter riding. Basically, I don't think you can do it unless you go through the whole license, insurance, registration plate, which I don't think anyone would want to do for an electric scooter. This is a conversation I had. So I got my second vaccine, so I'm basically done for the moment. They might do booster vaccines and stuff later on, but I got my first one. And in the package I got, had 2 pieces of paper. One piece of paper said Moderna. The second piece of paper said Pfizer. So when I went to the actual place, I didn't know what I was really going to get. I don't think you get to choose. In Japan, I don't think that. I think they're just still trying to get through it so quickly. You don't get to choose which vaccine you get. I wasn't going to be picky. I was like, just give me one, get me going. So I got the Pfizer one, and then I was like, oh, because I have 2 sheets of paper with 2 different vaccines on it, maybe the next time I go, I'll get the other one. I'll get the Moderna. And then I was like, is that okay? Is that bad? Is that good? So I talked to some friends and I said, like, what do you think? We have no scientific background at all. That's the important, that's the premise that I'm actually getting to, is me as a non-scientist with no real scientific knowledge, immediately thought, you're not supposed to mix vaccines. You should get the same vaccine twice. But then I immediately, because I do have a critical mind, went, well, why do I think that? Because in nature, mixing stuff usually has good results. You mix one thing with another thing and you get the best of both, or you explode and die. I think with a vaccine, I was like, well, maybe Pfizer has sort of some elements and Moderna has other elements. You mix them together, you might get a stronger vaccine overall. So it might be a good idea. So I asked some people I worked with and some friends and stuff, and I'm like, well, what do you think? Should you mix vaccines? And they immediately were all like, no, you should get the same vaccine 2 times. And I said, why do you think that? And then you could see the blank face. They would go, because you should do the same thing twice. But that's the same thing. There's no reason there. It's just something you've been told. And so I've gotten into the habit of trying to question these really base assumptions, despite the fact whether they might be true or not. I was microwaving milk tea in a plastic bottle for like 45 seconds. I just wanted, it was already warm, but I wanted it a little hot. So put it in the microwave. And then my coworker, he's a nice guy, he goes, you shouldn't microwave that. And I go, why not? And he goes, you shouldn't microwave that. And I said, well, but why do you think that? I'm not saying you're wrong, because maybe I shouldn't microwave it. I actually never checked. And then you can see he had just learned for some reason, I think probably because it was a plastic bottle. And if you microwave a plastic bottle with a hot liquid in it, it'll probably, there's a very good chance it'll melt or collapse in on itself or something like who knows? The best you could come up with is maybe like the plastic will get into the liquid you're drinking. It'll like burn off or something. I would have been okay with that as an explanation, and then I would have started looking for sources. But you could see that it was sort of a knee-jerk reaction, just like, should I get the same vaccine twice? Well, Japan's saying we don't really have enough vaccines to do a third booster. So I have my 2 Pfizers. Maybe my booster is going to be a Moderna. And again, I'm not going to complain about it because they've actually done studies. So that was the bit I was actually working up to, is we as non-scientific individuals believe a thing for no reason. Scientists do the smart thing and go studying it. Because they were initially thinking we want to start using Astra, but that has an 8-week period between shots, which they're like, that's really long. So if they combined Astra with the 8-week schedule with, like, say, a Pfizer or Moderna, which is only a couple weeks, then you would actually be fully vaccinated, and we could use all this Astra stuff that we actually have that's sitting around. And the longer it sits around, maybe the more likely it's going to go off or something. So studies have actually found is equal to or stronger with your immune response, which I believe is good. This is another conversation that I had. So I had basically no real effects. I had the sore shoulder and a headache and stuff for 2 days. And then 3 or 4 days later, I started to just feel gross. And I was like, it must be the vaccine. My wife's like, really still? Like I was somehow a weaker individual, which honestly sort of hurt my feelings a little bit. But I think people like have this idea that you have the reaction within the first 2 days and then you're finished. But your immune system isn't done for the first 2 weeks to a month. So like up to a month later, you still might be having a reaction. It might be mild. I can honestly say I've had a headache still. They're getting less every day. And I had sort of like not nausea, but like a general malaise, and I wasn't really hungry. And I'm pretty much chalking that up to the vaccine. If it doesn't go away in the next few days, I am probably going to go to the doctor and get it checked just to be safe, because I was sick back in February. But anytime I say something like that to people, they act like my body isn't doing it right. But then this is a problem for anyone who's doing the vaccine, because they feel like, I have to have the reaction in the first couple of days. And then after that, something else is wrong. But no, like for a week, it's guaranteed it's the vaccine. 2 weeks later, still could be the vaccine. You might have like a general sort of feeling of exhaustion. That's really normal and acceptable. There's also the thing that's gone out, which like if your body has a really strong immune response, so you feel really shitty, that's better than if you don't. Which I went and read a study that says that's not true. Like it's just your body is different. Some people react really strongly. Some people don't. The reaction, the response, the immunity you have afterwards is, again, totally individualized. So it's very possible you have no reaction at all. You are just as immune as someone who had like a terrible reaction for a couple of days. So that was a couple of interesting sort of myths almost busted. So they're considering doing a third booster shot, and they're like, whatever, you're going to get whatever we have. 44% of the country is now fully vaccinated, which is pretty good. 90% of people over 65 in Japan are fully vaccinated. They are, at least now, I don't know, like we're like a year and a half, 2 years later, on track to get things done properly. But I am happy about that. At least things are getting done. And everyone I know who's gotten the vaccine has talked about how efficient it is. So at least now that they're started, they're doing it right. It's a very short story. It was interesting because the Taliban, so America's pulled out of Afghanistan, and Japan shut down its embassy and pulled all its people out, pretty sensibly, I would say. Taliban has said they want good relations with Japan, and they want to reopen the Japanese embassy in Afghanistan, and they are going to guarantee the safety of the ambassador and staff and property and everything else. I was really wondering, like, this is now just supposition stuff. Like, I don't know. I only know my about the Taliban from media, so it's all pretty negative, and they don't seem like the most trustworthy guys. But at the same time, they're now trying to run a country, and it's very hard to run a country without any sort of allies or input. And then I was like, could Japan positively influence the Taliban to ease restrictions? I read one story that like they're going to go under the very traditional rule, like women won't be allowed to go outside by themselves and they can't go to school and stuff. And then I read another story. It was just this morning, so I didn't read it too deeply. That they're like, oh no, girls can go to schools and teachers are going back to schools too. But I don't know if that's true or that's just propaganda. And then this story, I was like, man, if you send people back to Afghanistan, are they just like high value targets? Is that what they're doing? Or like, is this like a sincere effort because they want to sort of bring the Taliban into the 20th century, which I think they don't want to do? I'm on the very suspicious side. I am following this story. I only read it again this morning, so there's not much to it yet. What is Japan going to do? Are they going to try to maintain relations, which the only way to get the Taliban to change, I think, would be politically. Clearly, we've seen that the actual conflict, war, doesn't work. That's why America had to pull out. Diplomacy might be the only way, and cool enemy goods. Because Bin Laden had a thing, and in like a box, and it had like anime in it. And so I was like, if Japan sends the Taliban body pillows with cute girls on them, could that change society? I am interested to see what kind of form this diplomacy is going to take in the future. Because body pillow diplomacy would be a very interesting strategy to take. We have another first. So we have the first woman who was driving dangerously on an electric scooter, and she was arrested because she didn't have a license because no one knew that was a thing. The first Yakuza boss has been sentenced to death. This is suddenly like way not light compared to everything else I've been talking about. There's the Kudo Kai. Kai is an indicator of, so there's it's Yamaguchi Gumi in the Kudo Kai. So it's not, these are how you identify groups. And I really don't want to get into Japanese because I'm pretty weak on it myself. Because the Yamaguchi Gumi, Yamaguchi is the family name and Gumi is like the indicator that it's like a big group, is the biggest crime syndicate family in Japan. But I've heard of the Kudo Kai. I'm pretty sure this is like Cobra Kai, where it's a smaller group. I'm now relating Yakuza families to Karate Kid. So this is a first, though. That's, again, why I'm bringing it up. It's pretty heavy because he's been sentenced to death. Japan still has capital punishment, so that can happen, and it very likely is going to happen. It takes a long time. They keep you in jail for years and years and years to make sure they're right, and then they do it. I've talked about the process before, but they just wake you up one day and you think you're going for breakfast, like, oh, no, we're taking a left here, and then you take a left, and that's the end of your life. So the thing is, this guy, the head of the Kudo Kumi, or the Kudo Kai, sorry, I already just did it, Kudo Kai, there were several murders and assaults, and he didn't commit them himself. He ordered them. And so the judges said that the violence occurred at his discretion. Therefore, it was his decision that they happened. Therefore, it's his responsibility. And that these things were egregious. They were extremely vicious was one of the words in the article. He bears full responsibility, and therefore it's just like he committed the murder himself, and therefore he's being sentenced to death. So this might be like a new phase in how they deal with responsibility for murders, because murder is still pretty rare in Japan compared to other countries, but they take it very seriously, and capital punishment is a real thing. I don't have a conclusion. I'm wondering if this will have an actual impact. I know that Yakuza numbers are going down year over year over year. Organized crime is changing in Japan. They're not family oriented anymore. They're loose groups. Actually, I did a story on it. I can't remember the name. I'd have to go look it up. But it's now not like family oriented. It's like loose groups of scammers that go city to city and commit crimes that way. But every time someone gets sentenced to death in Japan, it's a big deal because there's a lot of countries who don't think you should do that. But this may have an impact on if I decide as an organized crime leader that someone is going to be murdered and then think, oh, wait, I'm still going to take full punishment for that versus the guy who committed the actual murder himself. Would that change your opinion? I mean, this is, again, crime families that probably don't think that way. They don't think they're going to get caught, stuff like that. But it'll be interesting to see if this has an impact on organized crime in the future in Japan. So this guy on August 21st, this is not organized crime. this would be the literal like opposite, the diametric opposed example of organized crime. August 21st, this guy, he needs money. And he's 41 years old. The age is always a big deal to me because I'm like, if he was a kid, I would be like, he's young and stupid, so that's okay. Or more okay. This guy's 40 plus. It's not okay anymore. You know by this point that it's not cool. He goes into the convenience store. He's like, he takes out like a lighter, like the lighter for a cigarette, and he holds it up. Now, they didn't say if he clicked it on or not. I assume he did. He says, give me the money or I'll burn you. I've done a lot. Like, I like to consider myself a tough dude. I might not be, really. In a real life and death, someone sticks a gun in my face, I bet I panic and pee myself. But if you held a lighter up to me, like a Bic 100 yen lighter, and said, like, be careful, I'll burn you with this. Like, I think I would kind of just be like, what? I might laugh at you. I don't know. That's actually it. I just don't know. Because I know my first instinct would be lick my finger and put out the flame. Or if he actually went to burn me, moving his hand quickly towards me might be enough wind to put out the flame. He would have to hold the flame in a spot for an extended period for it to do any sort of real damage. So I think I am capable enough of moving, let's say my arm, that it wouldn't actually hurt me. It might singe some of my arm hair, but I have enough. It's fine. The manager of the convenience store had a similar thought process. He was like, you have a very small lighter. This isn't like he had a blowtorch or something that could actually do a lot of damage really quickly or burn through your clothes. Like if he was wearing, I guess the most dangerous thing is the really cheap polyester, that uniform that they wear in a convenience store might be flammable. It might not be. I don't know. I'm just trying to like, what is the best case scenario for this criminal? So the manager of this, he's like, even if you throw that at me, you're going to have to let go of the trigger, the plunger thing that keeps the lighter on. So that's actually going to turn it off. So he just went into the back room and called the cops. Now, the guy did not have the wherewithal to actually turn around and leave. He stayed there, I believe, probably still threatening people with a very minor burn. Perhaps just the blackening from, when you run a candle or something under your hand and it turns black but doesn't actually burn you? Maybe he was threatening with that. The cops, who do have guns, there was a standoff, and he threatened the cops with guns like the same way. He said, I'm back off or I'll burn y'all. I'm assuming this Japanese man did not say y'all. Again, and my first image, this is where the licking your finger, like the cop just licked his finger, put out the flame. It was like, I have a gun. I'm going to shoot you in the face now if you don't do what you're told. It didn't say what happened. Leaving it up to my imagination is maybe the biggest problem, because I imagine either a super cool cop who just like, and then the lighter goes out and he arrests him, or a very nervous cop who actually like pulls his weapon, is like, you don't want to do this, put the lighter down. Like a lot of really extreme tension. This is when Toshi enters the fray. The articles, I read 3. All articles said he was then overwhelmed. Now, I'm assuming overwhelmed meant someone walked up to him, slapped the lighter out of his hand, and then like pushed him. I don't think I think overwhelmed might be too grandiose a term for what probably really happened for a criminal of this caliber, because I think he would have been overwhelmed when the cop showed up more than anything else. I think he would have been overwhelmed when the cop was like, "Yeah, go ahead and try to burn me. I'm going to start punching you now." They carry sticks too. Again, the gun would have been overkill. The stick would have been overkill. Like hitting his hand and then smacking him across the face would have been appropriate, I think, for as far as the police brutality goes. The overwhelming, I really wanted either an explanation. I looked for a video. There was no video. It was too bad. And then I thought, oh, maybe they just overwhelmed him with emotion. So they were like, no, man, I get it. You know, my heart burns too with pain. And then he like walks up, and while the lighter's still lit, the policeman hugs him. And then the pressure of the hug puts the flame out, the flame of crime. Okay. We're on our last story. In Kobe. This is, of course, the dirtiest, grossest story of the day. I would normally say this is when people can tap out, but I know that by this point, I think it's been 2-3 years I've been doing Ninja News Japan. This is why people come here. There was an office fridge. It's a really common thing to have a fridge in the office, put your drinks in. And this lady found that her water bottle had been tampered with. So I assume it had been sealed and then unsealed at some point. And this happened twice, on the July 28th and August 2nd. Now, she was aware enough to not drink it and check it. She looked at it. The color was a little off. I assume it was just water, so the color was off. And she smelled it, and it smelled wrong. It smelled a little like pee. I had to give a little attention there because it's either going to be pee or semen. Maybe some poop. We had poop story last week. But I guess your water bottle, if it was poop, it would be pretty obvious pretty quick. So someone twice had peed in her water bottle. And it turns out a temp worker had sort of fallen for her. So he thought peeing in her water bottle would be a good idea. So that gets us into the very classic, again, no answer to this. What thought process did he go through to think, I like this girl to get to the end point of peeing in her water bottle is the good idea? So I immediately went like, let's take this seriously. And he's studied some kind of black magic or voodoo or ancient Japanese mysticism, where if you can pee in someone's water bottle and they drink your pee, the pheromones will get into your body. And then when you smell the pheromones of the person of the pee you've drunk, it'll have a stronger impact on you. But that's really gross. So I didn't want to dwell on it too much. There was an interesting thing. So he was arrested. He was caught pretty quick. He was arrested. So again, there were 2 dates, July 28th and August 2nd. And he said, I definitely put urine in her bottle on August 2nd. But I have no memory. Oh, no, sorry. I definitely put urine in her bottle on July 28th. But then I have no memory of August 2nd. It's weird to cop to one and then not the other, because I don't know what the punishment for this is. There's going to be vandalism of her personal property. I guess you could maybe be endangering her health, which might be some form of assault. They could do the very classic interfering with business practices, which I think would be always nice to tack on. It's just one of my favorites now that it's a thing. But I don't think that the punishment for this is going to be particularly severe because nothing actually happened. This is one of those cases where it's intended assault, but the assault never occurred because she didn't drink it. Therefore, I'm pretty sure he's going to get off pretty lightly. Is 1 count versus 2 counts going to make a difference? And I guess they probably don't have that first bottle anyway, so they're not going to be able to like check it for DNA. Would they even bother doing that is a separate question. What is with people peeing in stuff and putting their bodily fluids on other people like that's a good idea? That's what I need. I need the psychology behind this to really explain. I need someone to explain to me why they think, is it a bit of him goes into her? Is that the appeal? I'm now just going to spend the next little while thinking about this. I'll probably just end the podcast and still think about it for the rest of the afternoon. Because the guy from last week, he was getting poop on other people to alleviate his stress. He said, because of stress, I wanted to put poop on other people. I don't see how that alleviates your stress. I need that explained to me. This guy likes this girl. He pees in her bottle. That's not going to make her like you? Like, even as the pee guy, if you sit down and have a conversation, do you think peeing in her bottle is going to make her like you? I think even he would say, no, not really. So maybe box of chocolates next time? Say something?
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or anywhere you get podcasts. You can also watch on YouTube/Velocipodcast or streaming on twitch.tv/chunkmcbeefchest. You can find Ninja News Japan on Facebook. Send questions or comments to speakpipe.com/Velocipodcast for your first step to fame. Not the good kind, the fleeting pointless kind. Link in the description. Check out all the podcasts in the Velocipodcast family. See McB, Ninja News Japan and Daily Affirmations Weekly. We fully endorse body pillow diplomacy.